and I am anxious, but I can't sleep. Like, my wife thinks I'm going crazy. She's already like talking to my mom, like, "Hey, he hasn't slept in days." And what worried me so much was like every time I went to a doctor or a medical profession, their only answer was see a psychiatrist or take pills. Like there was no or sleep hygiene, which is silly because I'm like, well, I've never done that before and I've always slept fine. And so I was like, I'm gonna get a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist is 3 months out. I can't find anybody. And I'm like, okay, somebody has had to gone through this and like resolved it. And so I think I went to YouTube and I said, how I cured my insomnia. And that's when I found your channel.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to yet another really special Talk Insomnia episode. Welcome, Trevor. Super nice having you here. And this came about because you actually volunteered. You actually just sent an email in saying, "Hey, I'd like to be a guest," and I'm very grateful for that because there's so much hope and inspiration coming from discussions like just like this. You were part of of BedTyme for a while, which we'll also mention. But let's get started from the beginning. How did you start having trouble sleeping, Trevor?
Yeah, so I think mine's similar to other people's stories. So I had something happen to me. That was, I guess, for me traumatic. But I guess even before that, I had started a new job and was working a lot. I'm a type A personality. I work a really high pressure sales job that requires a ton of hours for a technology company. And so I basically put everything I had, like I prioritized my work over everything. I was working 60 hours a week, and the stress had ended me to where I was like constantly having panic attacks. And um, I think I stressed myself out so much. I got eczema in my ears. I don't know if that's a thing, but I went to the doctor for it, and the doctor was like, "You have high blood pressure," and I'm like, "I don't think I have high blood pressure because I get checked up every 6 months. I've never had high blood pressure." And she's like, "Well, they're going to give me blood pressure medicine, whether I like it or not." So they prescribed me blood pressure medicine, and I'm not somebody who's ever had high blood pressure. I just had been really stressed out, and I was kind of telling them that, and they just wanted to give me blood pressure medicine. So I was like, okay. I went home and checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was fine, but I was like, I'm going to just take the pill just because my doctor told me to. And so I took it one day, and then the next day I was feeling dizzy. I felt sick all day. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and I had a panic attack. And like my heart was racing so fast that it scared me, it really scared me. And so I went to the emergency room because I was like, I woke up, my heart was beating so fast, like I couldn't calm myself down. And I think that at that point, the stress had just like, it broke. It like, I was having nighttime panic attacks at that point. So, um, yeah. And they did all these tests on me. They're like, you're completely fine. There's nothing wrong with you. Um, and even then in the hospital, like my blood pressure was really high when I got there, and it would kind of calm down after I calmed down. And so I'm like, well, I'm not taking those anymore. And I'm just going to chill out. And then I got home and it was like 5 in the morning. I'm going to go back to sleep. And I'm like, well, I couldn't sleep from then until on. So I'm just going to go to work, and, I'm just going to live my life and be normal because I got to stop stressing about stuff. The next night I laid my head down, and I remember thinking, man, if this happens again, I'm gonna end up back in the emergency room. And so I think that was like the first thought that escalated onto, I guess, many anxious thoughts. And so at that point, I didn't sleep all night. I didn't even lay my head down. I just, all night long. So I'm like, yeah, I was just so anxious that I didn't sleep. And then the next night it happened again. And so I'm like, okay, well, something's wrong. And so the second night I ended up having another panic attack, ended up back in the emergency room. They gave me hydroxyzine bromate, which is like um, it's like a really strong Benadryl, basically. And I took that, did nothing. When you're that hyper aroused, nothing's going to calm you down. And so I think on the third night of no sleep, I finally like closed my eyes for like an hour, which was like, it wasn't really sleep. It was like, I just time skipped, you know? And that kind of went on for about 7 days of like really little to no sleep. If I did sleep, it was like paradoxical, like closing my eyes, I would time skip an hour. I think the most sleep I got in that 7 days was about 2 hours. So it was miserable, absolutely miserable. But about the
Are
seventh,
you still working at this time, by the way?
no, so fortunately I do work for a technology company who has like unlimited PTO and stuff like that. So I took a week off of work just to like focus on trying to get myself, which made it worse really, because I could just spend all day thinking about how am I going to sleep tonight, which it was the worst. I should have went to work because then I would have thought about it less, which is funny to think about. But yeah, it's about the seventh day, I was like, I am going back to the doctor, my doctor, and they're gonna figure out something because I can't do this anymore. So I go back to the doctor, tell her everything that's been going on, and I'm like, I don't have high blood pressure. I am anxious, but I can't sleep. Like my wife thinks I'm going crazy. She's already like talking to my mom, like, hey, he hasn't slept in days. And I'm the type of person who, it's funny in the BedTyme app, you're like, don't play CS:GO before you go to bed. And like, I'm the type of person who would play CS:GO and then go lay their head down and then just, it was, I could sleep anytime. I was, I could lay my head down anywhere and go to sleep. And so it was very odd to me that it felt like I lost the ability to sleep. And it's so scary for someone who's gone through it. For someone who hasn't, they're like, how, just lay your head down. My wife's like, I'm going to go to bed now. You should try to sleep too. And I'm like, just you saying that makes it worse. And so it was so weird to me. And so I went to my doctor again. I told her everything. And she's like, well, I'll give you trazodone. Seems like that's like the first step of every I'll give you trazodone, which I'm like, I'm not depressed because I'm like, at this point I'm Googling everything, looking up all my, symptoms that are caused by anxiety and not what I think is sleep deprivation. But I'm Googling everything. And so I'm like, I'm not taking this pill. This is crazy. Like there's more side effects than there are benefits. I took it once and it actually did nothing. Like it was like I took a placebo pill. And so I took that and that didn't work. And so on like the 8th or 9th day, I was like, I gotta figure out something. Like something has to change. And so I was like, I'm gonna get a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist is 3 months out. I can't find anybody. And I'm like, okay, somebody has had to gone through this and resolved it. And so I think I went to YouTube and I said, how I cured my insomnia. And that's when I found your channel. And so
you found it pretty early, actually.
Yeah, it wasn't, I'm fortunate enough to, maybe it was just because like I hyper obsessed with it for so long, like day in and day out. I took a week off work. So it was like, all I could do was research and look for answers. And so, yeah, I guess in making it worse every day, doing that kind of helped me in a way to find you, which is, I guess, a good thing. And so I found your channel on like the 8th or 9th day and was like, wow, I don't remember which video it was, but it was somebody that had a very similar story. Like they changed jobs or, they had an anxiety attack and then they just couldn't sleep. Like it was like they lost the ability to sleep. And I'm like, this is the exact same thing I was going through. Like this is a word for word. Like this is going to help me. And so I just started binging every video and went, I went through the NATO, like everything. I went to Kindle and got Set It and Forget It. Yeah, so I did everything I could. So
just a quick note. Yeah, I forgot to ask you this, but now this is the beginning of April now. When did this unfold?
This was January.
Okay.
So pretty recently. This all happened very quickly. And so at that point, I'm like, wow, I understand something now. I'm still very hyper aroused and it's not really helping. I'm going to download the BedTyme app. I downloaded the BedTyme app and I started going through the process of like, you just every day, like it kind of drip feeds you. Cause like I've done everything else. I would have probably gone through the entire app in a day. And so that was really helpful. For me, I think about the 15th day of like going through it and doing like a timeless sleep window is when I really started to like let go for me. And like that letting go is where things started to change. Like if I don't sleep, I don't sleep. I've gone through this many days. I'm not dying. Um, so just let it go. And so I think about the 5th day of the timeless sleep window, I'm like, well, if I really don't care, I'm just gonna look at the clock anyway because I don't care. And so like I start to break my own rules. I'm like, I mean, I'm not gonna sleep anyway. I'll drink some coffee. I'm not gonna sleep anyway. I'll watch TV. And so I think I just let it go.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
incredible. And I'll just add a little commentary and then we'll continue your story, which is that um, I'm all, oftentimes when I coach and when I was a coach in BedTyme, people would often say, "Hey, Daniel, I broke the rule. I did this." And then I almost invariably, I'm like, "That's great." Because sometimes you need sort of some guide, some guides like the time of sleep, like just don't check the time. That can be helpful for some person. But when people have the realization you have that, it actually doesn't matter. Like I can do whatever I feel like. That's true freedom, and that's like really letting go. And so I'm just always glad to hear that. And so yeah, a little commentary there, but just yeah, continue the story.
yeah, I think that went on, and I started to sleep some. I was like, I got 3 hours. I'm like, babe, I got 3 hours of sleep last night, and she's like, that's terrible. And I'm like, yeah, but 3 hours to me is like I laid my head down and I woke up, and 3 hours was, felt like sleep. So I think it took about, I think, after I really just let go and just, was okay with everything and, stopped like talking to myself through all the anxiety. Like every time it hit me, I would just say, it's, it happened yesterday and I lived, and today it happened again and I'm going to let it go. You just have to just breathe through it and, live for the day and not be worried about, am I sleeping tonight? Or if I'm not going to sleep tonight, just let it go. Just I just would watch anime or, you know, just read a book, anything, play games, whatever it takes for me to just get my mind off not sleeping, really helped. And so about 2 weeks after that, I started sleeping 5 to 6 hours every night. And that's kind of where I am now, just, consistent. And I
Super
just,
nice. I have more questions for you, more things I definitely want to talk about. But there's a specific one that I wanted to ask you about. When you mentioned, I think this was before we started recording, that you had you done BedTyme, but you did the like self study part where you
yeah.
don't have a coach, but you have this. You do have Ellie, like our chatbot that I trained. Did you ever use that?
I used it once and I said, hi, Ellie. And she said, something generic like, hey. And then I said, give me information. And so it spewed out a bunch of info like, like I think it was just details about like how uneducated most people are about sleep. And I think that helped me a lot too, because I'm like, I've been told my whole life, like, if you don't sleep, you're going to feel terrible. You're going to, and before I think maybe it was in my head, or maybe it's just because that's what you're told your whole life. But I'm like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. I feel terrible. And now it's like I get 3 hours of sleep. I'm fine. I still feel okay. And I may be more tired when I go to bed tomorrow, which is great. Cool. Maybe I'll sleep, 7 or 8 hours. I haven't done that in a long time. Like, and it's okay. So
Now that's there's a lot of misinformation out there, very true, and also that realization that we can be okay even if we sleep little. That often I've seen is like a game changer, because then the pressure to sleep decreases, and then ironically we sleep easier. I had a question about like work again. You took like 7 days off, and like the decision to go back to work, was that somehow felt kind of easy because you're like, I think I need to distract myself and go back to work, or was it kind of scary for you going back to work?
I think it was a little bit of both because like half of me is terrified because then I'm like, well, I can't focus on this anymore. And then the other half is like, you don't need to focus on this anymore. The more I like from your videos and the research I did, like the sooner I let go, the sooner things are going to get better. And so I just have to like basically blindly trust myself that the more I focus on other things, the less I focus on sleep, which is going to help me sleep.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, yeah, it was really hard. I think of it like just like the snake eating its own tail. Like the more you think about it, like I couldn't stop thinking about it, which was making it worse. And so I just kept, it was just the worst. But and what worried me so much was like every time I went to a doctor or a medical profession, their only answer was see a psychiatrist or take pills. Like there was no or sleep hygiene, which is silly because I'm like, well, I've never done that before and I've always slept fine. I mean, I could fall asleep on the couch watching a rock concert with all the lights on and blue lights surrounding me, staring me in the face. Like it doesn't matter. And so when they offered me like sleep hygiene, I was like, this is terrible advice. I've never done this my whole life. Why would I have to do it now?
Wow, that's I'm that's remarkable. I would say most people are kind of frazzled, and even if they're skeptical, they still try it. But you kind of saw through that
Yeah, I
immediately.
was
You
like,
didn't
sleep
even try
hygiene
it.
is garbage. That's
Yeah.
I did try like melatonin because I've heard from everybody like, oh, melatonin helps you sleep, and it did absolutely nothing for me. Um, so I'm not sure what that is either. But the only thing that really, I guess, helped for me was just letting go. Like this the second I let go and like just was okay with everything, it was the second it started to become, you know, something I just didn't worry about. And the less you worry about it, the more it's going to happen.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you this. After about 2 weeks into using bedtime, that's when things somewhat clicked. You started letting go. Things got easier for you. After that, have you had any of these like speed bumps where things get more difficult again, or not really?
I mean, I kind of had a little speed bump. It was more of like a self-induced speed bump. Uh, like I'm like, okay, I've been consistently falling asleep around 11 or 12 o'clock. I'm going to go to a movie around 10 and see what happens. Like, because I would normally, like, my family was like, let's go see a movie, Kung Fu Panda. And I'm like, oh, let's go do it. And so if I'm like halfway worried about sleep the whole time, I'm like, well, I usually go to bed now and it's been working and I'm scared to break this. But I'm like, but my old self would not care. And so I was like, okay. And so I get home and I'm like, well, now I'm wide awake. And so I stayed up till like 2 in the morning and then finally fell asleep. And I woke up at like 6, which was it's still sleep, which at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I slept 4 hours and I stayed up till 2. So I'm like, I just have to be grateful for what I got. And then tomorrow we'll not worry about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think as you know, like our approach is not prescriptive, like you have to do this, you have to do that, but generally it tends to be helpful to do things the way you did it, which was like normally I would just go see the movie, let me do that. You end up sleeping a little less, being a little bit worried, but the end result becomes you see that even that wasn't so bad. Like it was fine. You're still fine. You can go see a movie another time, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Very
It was the worst, best experience of my life because even though it was miserable, like the days that I couldn't sleep for days on days, even though I was like getting those weird sleeps where you close your eyes and you open them and then an hour has passed, like that was weird and terrifying. And not sleeping for that many days was awful. But it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me how to deal with my feelings instead of suppress them, my anxiety instead of, you know, to hold it back and to keep it inside. I have to like think through and, you know, deal with my thoughts. And so, even though it was terrible, I would still go through it again.
Yeah, this kind of naturally takes us to two questions that I have that I almost ask all the time, which is one of them is if you could, go back in time and tell yourself something during these like first or these like sleepless nights, what would you say? It's a little tricky for you because on one hand you might be like, this is good for you, or I don't know, what would you say?
I would say don't focus on work as much, because that's really what started all this. Was I overworked myself to the point where, it was my number one priority over my kids, over my, personal life, over everything. And so, that would be the first thing, but also just to let go, like not be attached to the outcome.
Yeah,
That's all you can do.
super nice to hear. And you already talked about this. You already sort of answered it, but it's still a nice question, which is outside of sleep and as far as life in general goes, do you see some areas where what you learned from this will be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I've always had anxiety, and to me, it's like that's stopped me from doing a lot of things. And I think from now on forward, I'm gonna be able to deal with it a lot better. And so it's not gonna be that roadblock anymore. That's gonna stop me from just doing things that I've always wanted to do. Just because I know how to deal with it now. I know how to manage that. Those thoughts that come into your head, and they're always going to be there. But with this process that I've gone through, it's really helped me understand, how my brain works. The thoughts that come in they're just thoughts, and that's all you can think of them as.
Yeah, amazing. All right, well, let's conclude there. It's been super nice having you as a guest, Trevor, and thanks for sharing this. And I'll just say, please be in touch. And again, thanks for coming on today.
I appreciate it.
You got it. Bye, everyone.
Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope you are feeling excited right now because you're so close to the finish line of Insomnia. And if you found that aha moment you've been looking for in this video, please share it with the world. Because insomnia can be such a lonely and isolating place before you find our community. Speaking of which, if you would like some more personalized support on your journey, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com. We have free and paid courses available with certified sleep coaches who have seen the worst of insomnia, left the struggle, and now are ready to help you. If you decide to join, we look forward to seeing you on the other side.